Okay, guys. Well, I imagine there's going to be a few more people joining us, but we're going to go ahead and get started. More than anything, to respect your time and also because we only have 40 minutes according to Zoom. So if at all during the session you run into any questions that you want to just kind of capture, you're welcome to use the chat. And we can always just revisit the messages at that time. So feel free to um, say maybe your name and what grade level you teach and where you're joining us from in the chat. And then also any questions that you have as we go through this. So yeah. First of all, my name is Steve Foster, and we are also joined here by Sory and Blanca. So if you wouldn't mind, Sory and Blanca, to kind of go ahead and introduce yourself. And Sory is our official interpreter for the trip. And so Blanca, and I know that some people joining us are at various levels of Spanish, and we'll get into kind of that everybody is welcome as far as no matter what your level of Spanish. But yeah, if you guys wouldn't mind, Sory and Blanca, to unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. And did you have a slide on here that you want me to go to, Sory?
Yes, it should be the next one, I think.
Okay.
Well, hello. This is Blanca. My name is Sory, and I mean she's my mom. And we have been working with Spanish for educators for several years now. My mom, I mean, she's in charge of coordinating everything here in Guatemala. She has been a Spanish teacher for more than 25 years. She has been a host family. I mean, she knows the ins and outs of, having people come to Guatemala and making them or providing them with the best experience. And as for me, I have been working reception for the last almost 5 years. And I am here to assist Steve and my mom and everybody with whatever I can. I'm here to support and yeah, to assist however I can.
Thank you very much, Sory. And
Oh.
Blanca, ¿quieres decir algo en español?
En español, sí. Sí, en español. Hola, buenas tardes a todas, a todos. Me llamo Blanca. Soy maestra de español desde hace mucho tiempo y estamos trabajando en el programa desde hace 8 años. Y para mí ha sido una experiencia agradable, muy bonita. Me gusta mi trabajo y mi experiencia con las personas en el grupo ha sido muy, muy bonita. En especial me gusta hacer sentir bien a las personas en mi país, especialmente en Antigua.
Okay. Gracias, Blanca. Is there anybody out there that wants to take a shot at translating for us as far as what Blanca just said, besides myself and Sory? All right, Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna try. Let's preface this with, I have been practicing for a year and a half now. So this is Blanca. She really loves welcoming people to Antigua, Guatemala, her beautiful country. She loves what she does. She holds the participants in her heart. I think that was the gist of it.
I think so too. Good job.
Yeah.
And just to be able, for full disclosure, Lisa has been working very hard, as she said. She actually joined us on the trip for the last couple of years, and she's been taking remote lessons with Blanca for also the last couple of years. So it's a little bit unfair for those other people out there that maybe haven't had the level of training as Lisa. But that makes my heart happy that you're learning so much. And I knew that for anyways. So thanks, Lisa. We'll get back to you here in a little bit, but I want to be able to get through kind of our objectives here. And let me go ahead and share my screen and we can get into our session. Oh, hold on. Share. There we go. And again, if you're just joining us, if you wouldn't mind putting just your name and maybe what level that you teach or what type of educator you are and where you're joining us from. And then we can, make sure to kind of start our connections in that way. Another review as far as our objectives really quickly is that we're going to not only kind of intro this July 2025 Guatemala trip, but also to be able to explore different ways to be able to fund your Spanish for Educators experience. And there's a variety of ways to do that. So this is our 10th cohort that we'll be having here in July. Some awesome pictures throughout the years, even the couple, it wasn't the direct year after COVID, but the year that we came back, Guatemala was still going through COVID. So my family and I with our masks on, and we've got Blanca, Sory, Luis, crew that was down in Tikal. So we've had 7 people that have gone on repeat trips, including Lisa. So we kind of feel that that's a really good indication that we're doing the right thing. And I think this needs to be updated as far as the number of US states. I think we're more at like 12 or 13 by now. And then we consider educators to be not only teachers, but also principals, counselors, classified staff. We've had a bus driver, we've had school board members, one of which said that it was going to be able to join us, district administrators, as well as children and partners of educators. So don't feel like you need to leave your family behind. We are very pro-family as far as bringing them along and participating in as much as possible. So that's an important aspect to be able to mention. Here is the calendar as far as our cohort number 10 for July 2025. So as you can see here, the dates are from July 6th through the 19th for the base program. We have had people in the past that have joined a week or two early and even stayed in Guatemala a week or two late. So there is that trip extension that's on a weekly basis to be able to kind of make it customizable, as well as that middle weekend. We have an optional excursion to Lake Atitlan, as well as at the end, we do have an optional excursion to Tikal National Park, which is on the UNESCO World Heritage list. So highly recommended on that one. We do offer graduate credits through a fully accredited university here in Colorado, which is where I'm calling from Durango, Colorado. Western State Colorado University is in Gunnison, Colorado. So we've been working with them for the last 3 or 4 years to be able to offer 3 graduate credit hours, semester hours, if you choose to do so, most of which you'll be able to kind of earn just by participating in this cohort. But there are 2 deliverables, one of which is a lesson plan using anything that you've learned from the trip, and another of which is a journal that you'd be doing with 5 journal entries to be able to attach to the course texts, most of which are books, but there's also some films. So I'm happy to be able to get information for that. And I think that's it as far as the overview of the trip. So if you have any specific questions, we can get to that at the end. And so if you wouldn't mind just putting it into the chat as far as questions that you have about the trip specifically, because like we had mentioned from the beginning, we also would like to explore options to be able to fund the trip. So we do understand as educators, I'm a high school social studies teacher. So we do understand that as educators, it's not always the most realistic expectation to be able to fund a $2,500 experience during the summer, and then you have to go out and get your airfare. So we do want to be able to make sure that this is accessible to all educators. And so that's a big portion of this session, is to be able to explore those options. And we did have one person that just straight up did a GoFundMe. So that is a possibility. Sarah Boitano started this GoFundMe. I will be following up with this slide deck as well, so you'll be able to kind of access what she said on her GoFundMe. As you can see, she was able to get almost $2,000. My idea was to be able to have it started by maybe like one of your parents or maybe one of your students or whoever, to be able to make it so it's, send my teacher to Guatemala or something like that. Or to be able to maybe have it started by somebody who's in the PTO. Speaking of which, my PTO, I know at my high school, which is fairly abnormal, has a really great grant program. So depending on how active your PTO is at your school, that might be something that you could look into. So, I don't know if it's formal or if it's just something that you could just ask the PTO leader if they have any excess funding that, they usually have kind of bylaws and that sort of stuff as far as where the money goes. So a lot of times that would be something that you could at least check in and see if that's something. And then sometimes the general budget of a school, if you want to check with your administrator, also has the opportunity to fund something like this. So we have had a few people throughout the years that has been able to receive some funding in that way. So moving on, district-wide, there are different options, one of which is the Educational Foundation. So I know here in Durango, Colorado, we do have a Durango Educational Foundation that we've been I have a couple of coworkers. It's kind of weird with Durango because I don't want to kind of go into that area since I'm an employee of Durango schools, but I've been talking with the foundation as far as what would get funding, and we're hoping to be able to make it happen this year. So what they've said at this point is that it needs to directly impact the kids, which in my opinion is definitely your ability to speak better Spanish would fulfill that. But there's also some community organizations that I think at this point, Lisa, if you wouldn't mind, because Lisa, she has really done a lot of work around being able to get funding from the Rotary Club in Gunnison. So Lisa, if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing a little bit, like a little gist as far as what that looked like, then that would be great.
Sure, Steve. So last year there were a group of 6 of us from Gunnison that went. I somehow came back and convinced 5 other people to return to Guatemala with me, which was great. And as a group, we wrote up a grant summary to both the Gunnison Valley Education Foundation, so our local education foundation, and our local Rotary Club. And for the group of 6 of us, we each got a pretty substantial amount of money. And like Steve said, we had to explain how it would impact our students. And really, my school especially, there's about 40% of our students are multilingual learners, primarily Spanish-speaking backgrounds. And so being able to communicate with families and students in Spanish is hugely impactful. I've seen that over the last couple of years. I don't have the letter that we wrote handy, but Steve, I can find it and forward it on to you if anybody's interested in seeing that write-up.
Yeah, that would be great, Lisa. And I had mentioned that if I'm definitely, I have kind of a list of emails that I'll be able to follow up with some of these resources, because the more that you can have in front of you as far as what's worked in the past, I think the better chance you have of being able to get funding as far as some of the stuff that's already worked in other parts of the country. So thank you very much for that, Lisa. So let me go ahead and share my screen one more time here. Okay. So another avenue within your school district is, depending on the size of your school district, there is the ability to be able to get funding through, the diversity, equity, inclusion department. It's called different things, like many things in education, as we all know. But I did we worked with with a district in Colorado called Thompson School District in Loveland. And they have the equity, diversity, and inclusion department that they were able to send a group of like 6 or 7 teachers a few years ago, right before COVID. And then we also worked with another district in Colorado in Fort Collins. That's a slightly larger district. And this was all the way back with cohort number 1. They actually sent a group of 23 educators, including bus drivers, front office staff, counselors, administrators. So it was kind of the whole gamut, fully funded. And so I think they had to, contribute $500 or something just to show that they weren't getting a free trip. But other than that, that was really cool to be able to serve that district and the large group that kind of really jump-started this entire program back in 2014. So Maria Gabriel is the person that, if anybody's here from Colorado, may know, that's kind of has a voice in the DEIB scene around here. And so she actually has a YouTube video that they did on the reflection side of that larger group that I'll put in the resources. That's a really powerful kind of 5-minute video that shows kind of the reflection that a lot of the participants had as a result of this experience. So I want to get to questions if there are any, but there are plenty of nonprofit organizations, whether that is community, like Lisa was able to find through the Rotary Club, or state or national. So this one is through the National Education Association. So that's more of a national level, but I know that at the state level, like this one is the New Jersey Educational Foundation. A lot of times, I think here in Colorado, we have the Colorado Educational Association. So if you are a member of your association, that also means that you're a member at the state level and the national level. So that's always a possibility to check in with your union representative at your site to be able to see if there's that possibility. And then another possibility here is we had a principal that solicited money directly from his school district, and this was in San Diego. And so they had kind of like a professional development grant program directly through it was a larger district. It was like the main one in San Diego. So especially for those larger districts, to be able to, and I have this proposal that you're welcome to be able to take a look at. Justin he said he was gonna try, but he's doing, like all of us, many things all at once. So, but yeah, I'll send that with you guys. And then other than that, there's I have a link here to some other grant giving organizations specifically for teachers that you're welcome to be able to check out, that I'll again put in the resource kit. And besides that, I'm glad that we have a little bit of time, because as I had mentioned earlier, I do not have the premium package for Zoom, so I get kicked out after 40 minutes. So I do want to kind of open it up for questions. If Lisa, Blanca, or Sory want to contribute anything as far as other information that they might have, or anything like that. Let me see if we have any questions here. Not yet. So if anybody out there has questions at this point, and wants to kind of unmute yourself and, let us know what you're wondering about related to this trip, related to funding, then we can go in that direction. Otherwise, I'll invite Lisa and Sory and Blanca to be able to put in their 2 cents. So let's see here. Casey and Bree and Liana, are you guys wondering anything in particular about this year's trip?
I'd like to hear a little bit about like the homestay part and what to expect, and yeah, a little bit more about that part, please.
Sounds good, Liana. Sory, do you want to take that one as far as the homestay?
Sure, I'll be happy to translate what she has to say. Sobre la familia, información adicional sobre la familia, donde se van a quedar.
Aunque la mayoría de nuestras familias tienen un papel muy importante con ellas. porque muchas veces toman a las personas como si fueran sus hijas, de verdad. Y es con el propósito de ayudarlas con su español.
So families are a very important part of the program because one of the best things about families is that they take the participants into their house and like their family. So they really try to make them feel like family, and one of the main goals is to help them also practice their Spanish.
Ujú.
¿Qué más?
También como las cosas, el español que pueden aprender, un español real en la casa.
Another good thing about the families is that the Spanish you can learn with the family, it's going to be more real and a lot, more real than just the one that you can learn from the Spanish lessons themselves. And apart from that, I mean, the good thing about the program being in Antigua is a very small city, and all of the families are also very close to one another, very close to the Spanish school and, to Central Park and everything that you can find in Antigua. It's all very close. And yeah, I don't know if that answers any questions or if you would like to know more specific details.
It does, gracias. Does more than one student stay in the same family, or is it like one student who stays with one family?
Usually it's more than one. Some families take in as little as 2 people. Other families that are bigger have had up to ¿cuántas personas máximo por casa? Like maybe
Like 5 or 6, yeah.
5, 6, yeah.
And I'm also curious because we also have Nate here and then Lisa, maybe what your perspective is about the family experience from your time in Guatemala.
Hello, yes. We probably had 5 or 6 in the one I stayed in twice. And the other one I stayed in once, we had 3 in one homestay, but I thought they were great. I mean, there was times where we had communication difficulties, but it worked out okay. So I think it's a great part of the experience.
Thanks, Nate. What do you think, Lisa?
So my 2 times there, I stayed with the same house mother. Nate, I think we probably both stayed with Hilda at some point in time. It was amazing. It was such a wonderful opportunity to, like Steve said, practice real Spanish, or like Sory said, real Spanish. There were, I think I said this, maybe 5 or 6 of us each time. The meals, it was really a great place to just sit down with a whole bunch of other people of different Spanish abilities, practicing language, helping each other out. Just, it has been one of my favorite parts of the trip.
Yeah.
And I would also say
Go ahead,
that
Nate.
one of the things that helped one of the times I went was we had people staying with Hilda that weren't part of Spanish for Educators, and they had a different level of Spanish fluency. And so when we did have communication problems with Hilda, they were able to help out. So she's not, I mean, if we have a bunch of people from Spanish for Educators, we might have them all stay with her. But if there are others, sometimes they've been there for a while and they've developed better Spanish than at least I had.
Yeah, we try to make it so there's typically everybody gets their own bed. Usually you have your own room. Worst case would be 2 people sharing a room with a bathroom that they would get a private bathroom for those 2 people. And you really have your own space, but then at the same time, like Nate and Lisa and Blanca mentioned, the meals are kind of coming together and practicing your Spanish, and then sometimes post meal, where you're able to kind of really get into the cultural piece to practice your Spanish and to be able to really get an inside perspective on what it really is like as a Guatemalan, and also, you know, in a Spanish speaking household. So really neat. And the food is yummy. I know when I've stayed with Amparo, I stay with families every year too. And Amparo is just such an incredible cook and takes pride in making sure that everybody's fed and happy. And there was one time actually the year after COVID that we went down that I actually got COVID, and I had to I was staying with Amparo that year, and I had to like tell her like, no, just leave the food at the door. I tried to like quarantine myself, but she really wanted to like make sure that I was okay, you know? So just this really kind of mothering, like, you know, she's kind of my Guatemalan mother. So it's been really neat to have that as a part of the trip. And I think that it's always one of the top experiences that people have out of the trip as a whole.
Great, thanks.
You bet, Liana. And then let's see here, Casey or Bree, if you guys have any specific questions, I'm getting the notification that we have 10 minutes to go before the 40-minute time is up.
Sure. I would love to know how we interact with the students and the school. I believe that was part of the experience, was participating with some of the students, the kiddos.
So you're talking about the when we do the school visits at the elementary school?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was just kind of briefly reading. This is my very like initial introduction to this
Sure.
experience. So, you know, if there's anything else that's a big component of it, or just about the school.
Sure. Well, I'm bringing up the calendar here because you can see we have in the morning is kind of our cultural piece where we'll be off and either at the school. So you'll see here we've got Tuesday, Thursday as our Guatemalan school visits. I guess on this one it's Wednesday, Thursday. Depending on the size of our group, we try to make it so you're matched up into you have a partner class in the elementary school. So it's twice a week. That'll be during the morning for approximately like 2.5 hours, including transportation, and all the ground transportation is included in tuition. So, and the school is in the outskirts of Antigua. So Antigua is a little bit more of I don't want to say touristy, but a lot of people will go to Antigua to speak Spanish, to practice their Spanish from English speaking countries. So there's a lot of people there from other countries to be able to learn Spanish. But El Hato, which is where we go typically, is far enough outside of Antigua where it's very authentic, where you'll have a lot of like these little girls here that are wearing their Mayan dresses and stuff like that. They're huipiles and their cortes, and that are really, it's very authentic as far as the Mayan influence. A lot of the families, Spanish is not their number one language. It's the Quechua language as far as the Mayan language. So it's really cool to be a part of something that's more authentic, and to see what it's a public elementary school that we work with. So to be able to see what public education is like in Guatemala. The government situation has improved greatly over the 10 years that we're doing this program. And I think, let's see here, about 8 of them we've been working with the same school, El Hato. And one piece of evidence that I have that it's been improving as far as the government support is that they do have a new building. They have a beautiful new school building. But when you go there, you'll notice that there's still kind of some rebar sticking out because they weren't able to have the same size of as big of a school as they were originally promised. So it's kind of like proof that yes, they're supporting, but there's still a little bit of ways to go. But the purpose is to be able to not only see what education is like, public education in Guatemala, but also to get to know the kids. So you'll be with the same group of kids for the entire time for all 4 sessions. So the hope is that by the time that you're kind of leaving that experience that you'll get to know the kids a little bit, you'll get to know your collaborating teacher, and it's a pre-K through 6 elementary school. So, even if you are, traditionally in like more of the intermediate level, we've had a lot of intermediate teachers that it's still, the favorite part of their trip. So I hope that helped out. And also I'd be curious to see what Nate and or Lisa have to say about your school experience.
For me, I really enjoyed my time at El Hato. It was really extraordinary to see the differences between what school is like here in the United States versus what it could look like in Guatemala. It was really eye-opening, so it brought back a lot of perspective to my own classroom. The students were very sweet. The teachers are very welcoming. You get a chance, if you're feeling comfortable, to try to teach a lesson, which is pretty extraordinary. It's a great glimpse into what life is like for our students.
And even if you, like me, don't have a very good grasp of Spanish, I was able to teach a lesson near the end of our experience, and so I still did it, even though I didn't have a very good grasp of Spanish. So it was fun.
Sory and Blanca, do you have anything to add as far as the elementary school El Hato? So I will also say that built into the tuition is a donation, an in-kind donation. So it's a collaboration where, since we're kind of disrupting in a way 2 weeks of their school year as far as having these outsiders come in, which, as we as educators know, can be a disruption. In turn, we provide materials. So instead of just giving them like a check and saying, here's some cash to go buy whatever, and we're kind of ironing out the details as far as this goes, but a certain percentage of that goes to the teacher themselves to say, like, what classroom materials do you need? And then a certain percentage goes to the administrative office as far as whether it be toner for the copy machine or different projects that school has been doing to try to get their students out into different enrichment activities. But I'm curious, Sory and Blanca, what else you'd like to say about the El Hato school?
I think, like you were saying, it's a very interesting experience and a big contrast. Like when you're living in Antigua and just seeing the city, and then you go to El Hato, and then you see a totally different side of Guatemala, which I think it makes for a really interesting experience and opening, I would say, as well. And yeah, because most of the kids are not they are indigenous children, and like Steve said, also Spanish is not their first language. And it's really nice to see, even though the school like the school has improved, but it's really nice to see how excited the kids are there, how happy they are, like how hard administration and how hard the teachers always work. And like the little things, for example, during recess, the kids are always taking the participants out to play with them during recess. So it's really fun, and yeah, very, very different from the environment in Antigua, but very genuine. Yes.
Hey, Steve, how are we doing on time? I had a couple things.
Steve, you're muted.
Can't hear you, Steve.
Sorry about that dang mute button. Unfortunately, Nate, we're sitting at about 2 minutes to go.
Okay.
So we're going to have to kind of wrap it up here. But Nate, I had mentioned that we're going to do a follow-up with some of these resources. So if
Okay.
you have anything specific that you'd like to be able to kind of add in there, because Nate is I don't know if you're still on the board, but he's been a board member in 2 different districts. And so he kind of has that perspective, as well as a bus driver. When Pooter went, I was telling you about the first ever cohort that we had. He was on that one. So a lot of great perspectives as far as that goes. But if you would like more, have more questions as they come up, please make sure to let me know. There is a couple of registration deadlines coming up. The early registration deadline, which is $150 off tuition, is coming up December 31st. And then the overall registration deadline, I think, is sometime in May. So, but yeah, be on the lookout, and please let me know if you have any questions. We'd be happy to answer them. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward
Thank
to it.
you.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.